Hi, I'm Ryan Crotty. Welcome to my studio in Auburn, Nebraska. Caitlin called me up and proposed that we do a two-person show with this sculptor named Trey Hill from Montana. I was totally unfamiliar with his work, and really the way, during the pandemic and largely how we discover our work these days is like through his Instagram page and his website, and really got an idea of what he's doing. And I gotta say, I'm a big fan. His sculpture is amazing, but as far as seeing it in person, I didn't see it until install day when we delivered the paintings to the gallery. And I've shown at the LUX before, so I was familiar with the gallery, but I guess I haven't done a two-person show with sculpture either. And so I was excited for that. I come kind of from a sculpture and printmaking background. Trey and I were kind of discussing, similarities or where there's crossovers in our work, or I guess specifically in the process. And as you may or may not be able to see here, when I'm mixing up my paint, it's opaque, yet it dries translucent manner, and so I really am not able to see exactly what the painting is going to look like until it has cured, and usually takes about a day. And I was thinking, similar to his process where he's glazing and firing sculpture, once you've done it enough times, you've got a pretty good idea, but he's not going to know exactly how the glaze turns out until it's removed from the kiln. And so we were talking about that and about how, in society these days, we kind of expect immediate results or answers. You can Google just about anything. And so, we were thinking, we won't know what our work looks like exactly until tomorrow. So, yeah, it felt like kind of a, maybe a statement or a phrase that's bantied about or used from time to time, like, yeah, we'll know more tomorrow, we'll get the results later. But I think we're less and less used to waiting at this point to know. So kind of hit on that, and I felt like it applied to both of our work. And I guess too, his sculpture has such a verticality to it, kind of tree-like in nature, or I think they really remind me of coral, some of the pieces. And I'm totally enamored with them, but I guess I was thinking that maybe I would revisit a series that I had done a couple years ago of these long, thin paintings. They're like 12 inches by 72 inches, and it felt like maybe I could use those to activate a kind of horizon line in the gallery that would contrast Trey's vertical sculptures. That was the plan anyway. And then when we got into the gallery and started installing, it was almost too much of a horizon line around the gallery, so to mix it up a little bit architecturally. And those paintings are made to be able to hang vertically or horizontally, and so really kind of worked out nice. And that contrast is still there. I guess what I didn't totally anticipate was this kind of beautiful contrast of the surfaces of both Trey's sculpture and my painting, where and not just the surfaces, but the color palette as well. Sculptures in the show either have kind of pastel, very light tones, or black and whites and grays. The surfaces are extremely glossy, and the color palette is definitely a little more saturated. So there's a really nice contrast happening there too between the surfaces and the color palettes as well, and I think it actually works really nice together. A lot of my exhibitions have been, the last few years have been solo exhibitions. I've been in a few group ones too, but I always find it fascinating, how the work exists and what the dialogue that happens when the relationships are happening in the same physical area, where you kind of can't not see both. And yeah, I guess so this was the first two-person show, just sculpture and my paintings. And yeah, Trey's all the way out in Montana, and I don't know, feel kind of kinship to him, but I've never met him in person, besides a FaceTime here or there. But I hope we can have a beer together someday though. This particular painting has one layer of gloss gel medium so far. A lot of times I'll put down the yellow layer first. It seems to work the best as a base layer. But I guess to step back, steps before that, a lot of times I'm using these kind of cheap store-bought stretcher frames and then taking the canvas off and stretching it with this clear primed linen it's a nicer surface to work on. And then I do really like the aesthetic of the edge of the linen, and I'll coat that in modeling paste, which is white and opaque. So the nature of applying it and then removing, the mass of paint, or in this case modeling paste, with pressure, will reveal, some of the weft and weave of the linen. So some of that shows through a little bit. I will then wet sand the modeling paste to create this kind of really lustrous kind of satin surface that's really smooth. And then it's a matter of determining the order of the colors that I want to put on to try to achieve the image that I'm looking for. And best laid plans don't always work, so a lot of times it's a matter of adjusting colors or intensity. Once I come back in and see the painting the next day, I've got a better idea of how to respond to it. In this case, I have the painting oriented upside down as I'm putting the second layer on. So the first layer of yellow went like from top to bottom, as I imagine the painting hanging at the end. And so there are reasons for that, because as you're making the pull across, hitting the stretcher frame below, and so wherever you are pulling that paint against and hitting a part of the stretcher frame below, it'll leave more paint there. Like it'll naturally catch a lot of that paint. So if I want, more intense red on one side, say at the top of the painting, then I'll rotate the painting, do it upside down, so to speak, so that red will end up at the top of the painting. That's what I'm doing right at the moment here. So really this is like the most intense part of the process, and it's really become about feel, how thick I want it. The other issue is that it dries really quick. I mix in, some additives to try to slow the drying process, but you start to get these lines, it'll turn kind of dry and boogery real quick. So I have a limited amount of time to go, and now I'm talking too much, so. So that's really like maximum manipulation at that point. The layer now is so thin that it does just dry super quick, and so when it's this thin of a layer of paint, I mean, it'll be dry by the end of the day. And because I was talking so much and not super focused, it's a little bit thin, so I may go back with another layer of the red to kind of amp it up a little bit, wait and see what it looks like when it's dry. But I'm also thinking the whole time, like, so how is the blue layer then going to look? And anywhere where it's very yellow, that's going to likely turn more green. Then if the blue layer is going back this way, you should have more green where it's bright yellow at the bottom, maybe a little more purple where there's more pink at the top. So that's a really thin layer of red. So early on I made this conscious decision to just kind of let the paint go over the side, smoosh over the side, if you will. And it acts as kind of a natural frame around the painting, and then also gives a visual history of the order of the colors that were applied as well. So yeah, lost quite a bit on the side. Sometimes I'll touch it up if it becomes too uneven, the globs of paint on the side, but there's something really nice about just letting the paint in the process, the results just kind of exist as they were, almost as like a snapshot or a frozen moment of application of the process taking place. And then, but I think there's something visceral about it. It's really just the paint and what happens when you're pushing that paint against the surface with that much pressure, then it's going to squirt out on the sides. So just let it be, and it's become like a feature of the paintings instead of a bug. And there's been countless times where I'll go back to an old painting and curious as to how exactly I got those colors or that that final image, and I'll look at the sides to see what was the order that went in initially, so that I can try to recreate it. I mean, with the pressure that's being applied, the intensity of the paint that was mixed, it's really hard to replicate a painting, make two that look exactly the same. Now, sit it down to dry.